If you've been with me this whole series, you probably noticed something. I asked a lot of questions. Some about history, some about learning, some about wisdom, some about truth. But there's one question that sits quietly underneath all of them. It's the question that's probably changed my life more than any other. The question is simple. How do I know? Not what do I know? How do I know? Looking back, I spent a lot of my life borrowing other people's conclusions. Sometimes from teachers, sometimes from authors, sometimes from documentaries, sometimes from people that I respected. There's nothing wrong with learning from other people. In fact, it's essential. The problem comes when we borrow conclusions without understanding how those conclusions were reached. That's not knowledge, that's inheritance. At some point, I realized that if I really wanted to understand the world, I had to become involved in the investigation myself. And this wasn't because I distrusted anyone else, it was because I wanted to understand, not simply repeat. One of the unexpected things about building Black Logic Media is that it made me a much slower thinker. That's probably the opposite of what most people would expect. People assume that when you're creating documentaries, it means you're having quick answers. It's actually the opposite. The more research I do, the slower I become to reach conclusions. Because I've seen too many situations where the first explanation wasn't the complete explanation. I've learned to appreciate the sentence. I need to look into that. I think that's become one of the healthiest habits I've ever developed. Here's what nobody tells you about pursuing understanding. It can be humbling, really humbling, because the deeper you study something, the more you realize how much complexity exists beneath the surface. Subjects that once seemed simple become layered. People become more complicated. History becomes more nuanced. Motives become harder to judge. And that's not frustrating anymore. I actually find it beautiful. Reality is richer than I once imagined. Here's what I hope this channel becomes. As I think about this channel, I don't really want it to become a place where people come looking for someone to think for them. I hope it becomes something different. I hope it becomes a place where people become better thinkers themselves, where they leave asking better questions than they arrived with, where curiosity grows, where humility grows, where understanding grows. Because if that happens, then that channel has become something much bigger than simply sharing information. It's helped build a habit of thinking. These days, when I encounter almost any important issue, I've started slowing myself down. Instead of immediately asking, what's my opinion? I ask, have I earned one yet? I love that question because opinions are cheap, understanding is expensive. Understanding costs time, reading, listening, reflection, investigation, humility. And I think that's exactly why it's so valuable. Before I wrap this up, I just want to say thank you. If you spend time with me through this series, thank you. Not because you agreed with me, but because you were willing to think with me. And that's really what this channel is about. Learning in public, growing together, asking questions that don't always have easy answers, and becoming a little more thoughtful every time we sit down together. If there's one thing I hope you take away from this entire foundation, it's this: never lose your curiosity. Never become so certain that you stop asking questions. Never become so attached to your current understanding that you refuse to deepen it. The world's far too fascinating, and truth is far too valuable to stop learning. I'm still learning. I hope I always will be. And I hope you'll join me. Thanks for spending this time with me. And I'll see you in the next conversation.